everyone. This is Campbell McCrary from Amvest Capital in New York City. Welcome to the LithiumBank webinar. Today's Thursday, September 8th. Appreciate you joining. A few housekeeping things I'd like to point out. Q&A is important, so please ask a question of management. Just highlighted that box. If you like what you're seeing right now, you can share this event and it'll put it on LinkedIn, Twitter, or it'll prepare an email that you can send this to someone. And that original link will also work for the on-demand replay. And we'll also email that to you. If you miss all that, it'll be on our website in perpetuity at amvestcapital.com/replays. But just Google that and it'll be obvious where that is. Amvest is a New York-based specialist investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource space. Please note this call is most definitely for informational purposes only, and it's no way a solicitation to buy or sell securities. Very pleased to have with us today Gianni Kovacevic, founder and director of LithiumBank, and Kevin Piepgrass, the CEO of LithiumBank. We'll start with Gianni here and take us through the story and your new company. Congratulations on your previous deal, Copperbank. I see a theme here. And then we'll circle back for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Campbell. And for, I guess, people tuning in, they know the story, and there's going to be some that are hearing it for the very first time. LithiumBank is a very large land base focusing on delineating lithium resources and then putting them in through economic models or preliminary economic assessments and eventually pre-feasibility studies. So time is very precious, and I will get right to the point here. This forward-looking statement should be used in the context of everything that we talk about within the presentation, and it can, of course, be found and downloaded from our website, lithiumbank.ca. And today, I'm joined with Kevin Piepgrass, our Chief Operating Officer. So the main point here is to walk everyone through how does a PEA come together, time-wise, cost-wise, and the deliverables. There are people that have followed the story since IPO, and we IPO'd on April 1st of this year. You can see a price chart. So there's about 6 months of the share price, and people should be well aware the markets have been very negative and very nervous. So the timing of the IPO was not ideal. But the company has very aggressively marched forward. We have 3 very large projects. We're going to talk about all 3 of them, but in the context of our flagship, which is called Boardwalk, we've been working diligently with the team, with Hatch Engineering, which is our independent consultant, to deliver a preliminary economic assessment on that project for in the coming weeks, so within maybe around the October period. And Kevin, once again, will walk you through that, what the time and what's taken there. So a few things I just want to highlight here, and I guess is the share count. This is for me personally, as the founder, this was extremely important. We wanted a company that was able to deliver a lot of torque on a per share basis. This is a very low share count for a company that's got 3,700,000 acres of tenements focused on lithium in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and we have 100% control of these projects. They are not earn-ins. They are not joint ventures where we have to work with other companies. It's working directly with the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan. And cash-wise, when we IPO'd on April 1st, it came out at $1.50, went to $2, and you can see there's been a pretty consistent cascading down. And we traded around 10 million shares in the first 2 months. Now, for a company that only has 37 million shares outstanding, I'll also point out that there are 14 million shares in escrow. So most of the people that wanted to sell and get, and do something else because the market was negative, I would say that turnover has occurred. And if you look at where the capital was raised, exactly 1 year ago, September of 2021, the company raised almost $9 million at $1.50 a share. And before that, we raised $5 million at 80 cents a share. So you could see that the real money was raised at these prices. And we believe that this is one of the most important value drivers for anyone that's going to be looking at investing or speculating within a story like LithiumBank. The warrants that we have, you can see the average strike price on that's about $1.58. And on a fully diluted basis, I think we offer this, as I've already commented, a lot of torque per issued share. Finally, we're also going to have, once everything that we deliver to the market that's already been sort of underway, company's going to have around $4.5 million cash. So that was also very important, that we weren't hat in hand and we could sort of weather the storm. I would not have anticipated it to be this negative, but meanwhile, here we are. And as we continue, this slide is a brief comparables. LithiumBank on the top. We have three very large projects. I wouldn't even call them three flagship projects, even though Boardwalk is the most advanced, but it's certainly not a one-asset company. So if we look at a few of the key points here, the market cap is 31 million, based 85 cents on our what I believe is a very low share count. But if you compare it to the other companies, the stock-listed companies that are working forward on these DLE brine projects, you can see that our resource base is very large, and the one that we released first on Boardwalk, which was put out about a year ago, this is one contiguous reservoir, one project. We are not conglomerating various different reservoirs or deposits. And this is something that we're working hard on our project number 2 called Fox Creek in our Saskatchewan portfolio. We believe that we're going to be able to deliver resources on those projects as well. So there's some guidance here that as we get to the second part of 2023, we believe we're going to have a resource that's going to be significantly larger based on these other projects. So when we look at the resources that our peer group, they took these initial resources and they've all been put into an economic model, either a PEA or a PFS. So we have a very large resource we're able to report to the PEA that Hatch Engineering is going to deliver for the company. So we think this is going to be a very exciting economic model, and it's going to really establish Boardwalk as one of the largest and development projects in lithium and really world class. So you've got good share count, good resource base, multiple projects, and the thing that is most important for me as a founder of LithiumBank, a lot of torque per issued share outstanding. So I'm not going to touch too much on the lithium price. It's went parabolic, and as you know, from when we raised our capital exactly 1 year ago at $1.50 a share, the peer group went up around 10x per company. Everyone has rolled over since the market has come off, but they're still significantly higher than they were if you look at their charts back in the summer and fall of 2021. This is, before the lithium price took off. So we, because of the unfortunate timing of our IPO, we have not participated in any of this appreciation. So we think there's a very good opportunity to close the gap for a company to go from a $30 million market cap in our peer group, having market caps of $1.5 billion, $1 billion, and $200 million. It doesn't take a lot of, I think, explanation there. It should be noted that for the context of our PEA, we are not, of course, relying on it on a high lithium price forever. We're looking at something in this range, in the 22,000 price range, which is what every company should do. If your project cannot be economic at those price levels, it's not going to be a project for the future in our view. So people should understand that we are not relying on these elevated lithium prices, and nor should any other company. Not going to talk too much about supply and demand. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you don't believe that the world is going to be building billions of lithium-ion batteries, we're the wrong company for you. You need to look at that and then fundamentally understand where that lithium will come from. So this is a pictorial of the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan, and you can see that the majority of our over 3 million acres would occur here, all the green hashes. And we have a more detailed map that Kevin's going to focus on there, talking about Boardwalk, which is here in the north, this project here, and then Fox Creek, which is just south of Boardwalk. And then our Saskatchewan portfolio, you can see here, and we're also going to superimpose some of the competitors in Saskatchewan. So the way these tenements work in Alberta, it's a concession, it's staking, and then certain dollars have to be spent per acre that's been staked over a 2-year period. In Saskatchewan, it's a little different. There was an auction, and LithiumBank paid some $3 million for the tenements in Saskatchewan. And there's, I think, a lot of potential and a lot of exciting drivers happening in Saskatchewan. We are a premier player in Saskatchewan. So we've got 3.4 million acres in Alberta and over 300,000 acres in Saskatchewan. One must look at that in the future because of these multiple world-class projects, it would not be illogical. And this is a forward-looking statement, no guarantee this happens, but it would be reasonable that if we're not getting appreciation in the market, that there could be some kind of a driver for shareholders outside of share price appreciation. Namely, what many companies have done very successfully when you have lots of assets is some sort of a share spin out for a different project. So that's something we are looking at. Forward looking, no guarantee it happens, but certainly something people should be familiar with. So where will this lithium come from? If the CAGR growth rate over the next 20 years is going to be 6, 8, 10, 12%, depending on where we are in this pivot to electrification, it, in my estimation, is not going to be able to come solely from hard rock or salars. Salars have all the, this is something that happens in South America, namely Chile, and hard rock mining has the same footprint that you would have on any typical hard rock mining project. The future, I believe, is going to be with industrialists, technology companies, chemical companies, working direct lithium extraction, where you take this briny water, the grade is often lifted from 70, 80, 100 parts per million to 3,000, 4,000 parts per million in many cases. And then through what all, many different companies are working forward now is that last 50 meters where they're taking this lithium-rich brine and turning it into a lithium product that's going to go into a lithium-ion battery of the future. And we, I believe, are, if not the largest landholder for this type of concession, certainly one of the 2 or 3 largest in the world. And I believe there's no better place to have that kind of business than Alberta, which is an extractive industries economy. You have hundreds of thousands of people in Canada that work in some capacity in not just oil and gas, but within certainly mineral extraction. And we're in a place that's openly, governmentally I'm speaking, very supportive of this business. We are working very hard to move our portfolio forward. So on that note, I'm going to pass it to Kevin, our Chief Operating Officer, who is an engineer and really the point person on working the PA forward. And we're going to start with Boardwalk and Fox Creek, a little more of a zoom in here, and he can sort of go over some of those other details. Kevin, I leave it with you.
Yeah, thanks, Gianni. So as you can see here, we're focusing currently on our 2 main assets in Alberta, the Boardwalk and the Fox Creek project. So we've consolidated ground in both of these projects. Over 500,000 acres in Boardwalk, 1.3 in Fox Creek. We put a resource estimate on Boardwalk. It's a very robust resource estimate. There's a lot of data that was involved in that resource estimate, and we've been working towards a PEA on that. I'm just going to skip quickly so the PEA for the Boardwalk project. A preliminary economic assessment is a fairly robust document. There's a few key elements that need to go into it, and we've been working very hard to get this to a level of high quality. So it started out with our resource estimate. We completed that in 2021 with just shy of 6 million tons. We've since collected additional samples. Those are, those 4 samples, we put those out in a news release. They averaged around 72, 73 in total. So higher grade than the rest of the deposit. So we will do a resource update for the PEA, as well as incorporating much of the database and likely showing higher confidence in that resource. For the PEA, the hydrogeology study is critical. You need it for the resource estimate to give you the volume of water. You also need it for the PEA because it is going to tell you how much water you can produce, how much water you can deliver to the surface on a sustained level over a long period of time. And we're seeing that this Boardwalk project is very robust in that sense. It has a massive amount of water, and the deliverability is incredible. There's no holding back on that as far as what's holding back the project. That's not an issue on this project. So like I said, we collected 4 samples from 4 different wells for assay, but also for mineral processing. And again, like any economic study, you need to know your metallurgical, like you would in a hard rock project. Your mineral processing is key. And for pretzel brines, it's direct lithium extraction. So to get this process, we didn't develop our own technology. That takes several years and a lot of man hours and a lot of millions of dollars to do. We engaged with Hatch Engineering. They are a world-leading process engineering firm. Their resume is very impressive with what they've done with lithium projects, both solar, hard rock, and petrobrine. There's not many engineering firms that have this experience with mineral processing. So we did a comparative study focused in North America. We wanted to keep this close to home of all the DLE technologies that exist out there. And we came up with a short list to do sort of an in-depth sampling program to do the test work with. And we've now since come quite a far way with one particular company that we're very confident in. This company is probably further along than many other companies around the world. They are piloting in 2 different locations in North America. They're commercially developing their ion exchange material, and they can ramp that up to a potential commercial extraction situation. So a little bit about, excuse me, a little bit about the DLE process itself, and how a project like Boardwalk would work. As you drive by northern Alberta, you'll see oil and gas pumps throughout the countryside. That's what you'd expect to see in a lithium project. The same extraction method, we'll be pumping brine instead of hydrocarbons, so we'll be pumping from below the hydrocarbon level to avoid hydrocarbons as much as possible. This will flow up with a bit of a pre-treatment to remove any H2S or any other hydrocarbons that we might get from little bits. But primarily, it will go from there into a DLE facility. In our case, is an ion exchange facility, which is a very highly selective material that removes specifically the lithium from the brine within minutes. And this does this like a home water softener, except for it's selective for lithium specifically. So it goes through that in minutes, and once it does that, you take the beads and you wash them. And then you have this immense amount of water that has no more lithium in it, and it goes down and it's put back into a disposal well. And we're looking at disposing into several different formations for various reasons, which I won't go into right now. But then after you have these beads, you wash them, you remove the lithium, and you put it through a reverse osmosis system. And again, it's like you'll find in your home. You have it on your faucet for drinking water. It removes the calcium. It just further refines and further purifies your lithium material, your lithium concentrate. And following that, you have very simple processes that are industry standard to continue high grading it to a 40% lithium chloride solution, which then goes to a back-end phase to create a battery-grade lithium product, whether it's lithium hydroxide or lithium carbonate. So that's a high level of what it would look like. Now, talked about Boardwalk. I want to talk about Fox Creek a little bit. We spent the last couple of years actually consolidating this land. We feel confident that we have the vast majority of the Leduc Reef. We're quite excited about it because of the historic high-grade samples, averaging between 76 and 130 milligrams per liter lithium. And in this particular case, you have the Leduc Reef that sits directly on top of the Beaver Hill Lake Formation, the Swan Hills Carbonate Reef. They're hydraulically connected, so we're actually going to add, maybe 50 to 100 meters of rock that contains porous rock that contains additional brine at similar grades to this. So we're excited about putting this hydrogeology package together, which we're working on right now. We've engaged with Matrix Solutions that's working on this. And we intend on building our same model that we've developing Boardwalk. So Boardwalk, we know which DLE we want to use. So we're going to start processing those with the same test work with Hatch as well, and using Hatch for the preliminary economic assessment. So we have a good path towards development that we've developed, and a strong foundation that we've developed from doing Boardwalk. Now this translates to our Saskatchewan assets as well. As Gianni said, we have over 300,000 acres. This area in gray to the south, right beside our south property, is a competitor company. They have a sizable resource that they're working on a PEA as well. In our Kindersley project, there's samples up there up to 78 milligrams per liter. There's advantages of working in Kindersley as opposed to Alberta, but every brine is created differently. So we're happy to have a bit of a diverse portfolio and working towards the same path forward as our Boardwalk with hydrology, and mineral processing. So as we work through our PEAs and our resource estimates, we're going a bit above and beyond. We're trying to create robust projects and robust reporting that looks beyond just a preliminary economic assessment. It looks beyond just the bare minimum to get a report out to the market. We want to develop a strong foundation so that the next level of say, pre-feasibility and piloting these projects is not a big leap. And part of that, we see the opportunity there because of the Western Canadian advantage, where you have a government that supports the industry. They're out publicly saying they support the industry and they're excited about it. There's immense amount of infrastructure with roads and power and pipelines and several wells that we expect to reuse for disposal. The workforce is easily translatable between lithium production from petrobrines and oil and gas. And interestingly, the Tenure Act is changing in Alberta. They're taking lithium brines and moving brine minerals into a separate Mineral Tenure Act, into leases that will be overseen by the Alberta energy regulators. And that's a great move for the industry, because it's going to be overseen by the same regulators that oversee oil and gas, which means the transparency level of permitting and regulatory systems are well established. They've been well established for decades. So we expect to see permitting go fairly smoothly as we process and develop these projects. There's a lot of pride in Alberta and Saskatchewan in the industry. There's a lot of social support, a lot of community support, and just the wealth of geological data that the provinces have made publicly available really fast track these projects. So it's an amazing opportunity in that regard. So the timeline, you can see we're developing our three main projects in parallel: Boardwalk, Kindersley, and Saskatchewan in general, and the Fox Creek project. We're working on moving these as fast as possible. So I'll let Gianni discuss the LithiumBank team here.
Yep, sure. So people would be familiar with Paul Matisic. Anyone that's ever bought a junior mining share would understand his, I believe it's 7 or 8 companies that he sold, 2 of them in the lithium space. Rob Shuchuk is my partner and co-founder with Taylor McDonald. And the team, we got a Alberta-focused, people that have been there and done that, and they have a deep understanding of all the different nuances of working in Alberta, technically, governmentally, and certainly have been great partners as we move this patiently. It's been a 4-year story. We IPO'd on April 1st, but LithiumBank is a 4-year story going back to the beginning, as we were looking at this as the 2020s is going to be a decade of lithium extraction. And a couple other board members we have, Stephen Piepgrass, also a professional engineer, MBA, and related obviously to Kevin, and Christopher Murray, a lawyer with Ostlers in Toronto. So in summary, I think we touched on all the key points that should matter to any investor, and you can go into deep detail and go into hours and hours on understanding technically. And there's a lot of speculation where people will, how will DLE develop? There's so many thousands of people working in this field right now. I'm talking about technologists and chemists and industrialists, that it's evolving like a technology, and it's doubling so fast, faster than the microchip back in those days when it was doubling at such high rates. So this is a long-term solution for all these industries, and they're at the last mile. And so we're a company that's going to be delivering world-class resources and eventually economic models on multiple projects with a low share count, lots of cash in the bank, and we're going to do this patiently. And through the summer, I think people that maybe don't understand all these nuances or don't appreciate it, we're trying to deliver high-quality work and high-quality reports that'll be digested and understood by world-class companies. And this has to be done, methodically and carefully. And as carpenters will say, you measure 7 times, you cut once. So I'm sure there's a lot of questions, and we're happy to take them, whether they're company-wise or technical-wise. But I'll leave it with you, Campbell.
Let me just read them out to streamline this. A number of different DLE technologies under development, do you have a specific DLE extraction technology you were planning to use, or are you considering a technical partner to bring into the projects?
I'll answer that. Yeah, no, we haven't publicly disclosed the companies we're working with. We certainly have gone down the road with one particular company that we feel is very, very suitable for our brine.
All right.
People should also appreciate the different chemistries of different brines. So they're not all the same. They all have different, mineral makeup. So
yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, every brine is created differently, and every DLE is maybe geared towards a certain temperature or a certain concentration. So it's really making them fit. I mean, there's DLE technologies popping up everywhere. So it's a matter of sorting through which ones are compatible. pH and temperature.
And it cannot be underlined. Yeah, sure. And it cannot be underlined enough that all the collateral benefit that companies like ours get from all those tens of thousands of people working on this, because then we can be selective and we can choose.
Yep. To that note, a lot of people are familiar with E3 metals. How advanced are you in compared to what they're doing? And then what kind of DLE are they doing? I just bring that up and just as a benchmark of where you're heading. That's there.
Yeah,
they just
I'd
put a
say,
big dog in the DLE in that space, in that area.
Yeah, so both E3 and us, we're both looking at ion exchange methods. They seem to work the best for these brines. It's interesting. Our brine chemistry is remarkably similar to E3's. So we're testing with a different technology company than E3. However, it's interesting to know that if E3 ion exchange is very successful, it's interesting that it'll be very successful for us too. And I know they're looking to license their product, so it's certainly an option in the future should that be a possibility.
Excellent. What are the permitting challenges to your projects in Alberta and Saskatchewan? Any critical issues for what you're trying to do in the space? And you're putting a lot of holes in the ground and pumping things. So how do they see that?
I don't see many permitting issues, many permitting hurdles. You look at a map of Alberta, Saskatchewan, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of holes in the ground. I don't see that as an issue. There's over 500 holes in the ground just into the Leduc at the Boardwalk project. That's not considering all the other formational holes and targets. So that's not necessarily an issue. And being regulated by the oil and gas regulators, both in Alberta and Saskatchewan, they understand the methods that we're doing. There are other companies that pump up brine for road salts, for example, that it's not so dissimilar. So it's nothing that is new. The technology is all old. It's just taking it to a new scale that's never been done before.
The important thing for people to do is just Google Alberta government lithium, and you can see. I mean, they've done the footwork for us. They will explain in their own words through all the various levels of ministry in Alberta, and they can explain to you where they feel that the lithium industry is in the future Alberta economy.
What's pretty cool is all that infrastructure, the people, the equipment, the culture. It's already there from the energy space. So
north of $1 billion on our Boardwalk project. Correct, Kevin, of infrastructure. Most of it's shut in.
Yeah, but you're not having to bring all that to some remote place in South America. So,
well, yeah, there's no camps here. There's towns next door.
What % of your sampling is taken from previous drilled oil and gas wells?
All of it. 100%. We haven't drilled a single well by ourselves yet.
And can you explain your
sampling? That's why it's time efficient and cost efficient. People need to appreciate this. Those wells are to get the information quickly and cost effectively. And we've been dealing with one singular operator. We don't have a hodgepodge of people we're working with at the Boardwalk project. It's one singular group, and that's why it's been done, as I say again, time efficient and very cost efficient to get the resource to the final footsteps of the PA here.
Can you explain your sampling process?
Yeah, no, sure. That's we go into an oil and gas well with the operator. We have a QP on site while they pump the water for a period of time to make sure you're getting formational water that you're targeting. And then you collect the water and you send it to a lab for analysis. And we work closely with the labs to ensure the greatest accuracy of lithium analysis. It's a fairly straightforward procedure that oil and gas companies do on a regular basis for their standard water sampling, except for we just analyze for lithium.
What level of concentration, parts per million, are you focused on achieving for DLE? Carbonate versus hydroxide?
It's okay. So our resource estimate is currently at 67 milligrams per liter. It doesn't translate exactly to ppm because there's different densities of water, but for the most part it crosses over for simplicity. To go to the next step, if you want to do a battery quality lithium product, you have to convert it to a lithium chloride, and that's what we do with the DLE process. We convert it to a lithium chloride all the way to, we're targeting maybe a 35-40% lithium chloride solution, and then taking it to the next step towards a lithium chloride or a lithium carbonate. You can convert to a lithium chloride or carbonate from the lithium chloride.
We probably get this question a lot, but so we should have an answer, but I know it might be a very broad answer. When do you expect to be in production, and how many tons a year? Are we talking 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? I guess some sort of perspective would be helpful.
I'll answer this one, Campbell. So what is a large lithium project? They're coming out typically around 20,000 tons a year, and people may be familiar with what was in Serbia, a project that Rio Tinto owned called Jadar. It was canceled by the Serbian government earlier this year, because kind of at the time that Novak Djokovic was not able to play in the Australian Open. That was 50,000 tons a year. So with a project like Boardwalk, which is so large, it wouldn't be unreasonable to see 3 different types of little projects combining into one. So for something in the, that could be north of 50,000 tons a year would not be unreasonable. It's just using basic historical presence of other companies that have done PAs with similar types of reservoirs, and you look at the size, it would be, should be and could be one of the world's largest lithium development projects, the Boardwalk project, that is.
Apart from brine deposits, as an upside of this project, have you encountered pegmatites or sedimentary rocks in the same area of the brine deposit?
No, we have not. No. We haven't seen any pegmatites, no, nor have we actually looked for them. We're focused on the brine. But we have sampled many other formations. It should be noted that we did quite a big exploration campaign a couple of years ago and leading up to now, sampling several other formational waters from different formations, just to make sure we have the best of the best.
You drew some comparisons to hard rock versus salars. Could you expand on that from the angle of cost and environmental impact of the various methods of producing lithium carbonate hydroxide? Good question.
I can touch on this. Well, a salar, people would be familiar with those pictures. You could think of something in Chile, in South America, where these large pools or ponds are evaporated. That evaporation period is between 6 and 12 months, where it's slowly drawn down to a salty substance, and then it goes through a chemical process. When you're talking about a hard rock project, this is something that you'd be familiar with in Australia or in Canada, and they are a footprint that would not be dissimilar to a large gold mine or a large copper mine or copper porphyry mine. Maybe not the size of a porphyry, but certainly a medium-sized copper mine. So there's a footprint involved. And they happen, and so far, these projects that have been permitted and brought to production have happened in places or jurisdictions that are very well familiar with extractive industries. Where DLE separates itself, the reservoir, which is deep underground, the footprint is some factory type materials that are at the surface. All of the resource of material is below the surface. It's the footprint is much smaller, and the path to production is also much quicker. So as more and more commercialized and more technology becomes available for projects like ours, we believe that the world is going to be embracing this, and this is the future growth. When you're talking about 8, 10, 12% CAGR growth rate from lithium, my estimation, it's not going to come from salars in South America. There's for many reasons. And are we going to be able to find that many hard rock deposits that are going to be permitted? Challenging. They're going to have to continue to work on these types of deposits because there is now quite some resource base, and it's the next wave of production over the next 10 and 20 years, in my estimation.
This, not my words, but what do you think will separate the winners from the losers, and why will you be a winner? And end quote. I'll add to that, won't everyone be a winner since there's so much lithium that's going to be needed? I would think that both provinces would there'd be no loser, right? You're all winning. It's not a competition. Is it a competition?
There's two ways to answer that. You got technological success, and you look at jurisdictional sort of benefits. It doesn't take a lot of imagination. There are places with hard rock projects that are in development or wanting to be into development, going through permitting, that are well situated and poorly situated. You can use your own imagination. Our projects, for many, many reasons, we've already touched on them, are in a very good jurisdiction. But when you're talking about the people listening to this presentation, success is with the share price, with the share count. Is it reasonable for me to suggest to people that we are going to continue to have a very good share structure because of the way we have 100% control of the projects? We have a low share structure, a low share count. We have a lot of cash in the bank. And when the time is right, with the right investor, after we've delivered news to the market, then and only then will we discuss any kind of dilution with the right type of investor or partner going forward. But that's not going to be tomorrow or next week, not at these share prices. We do not need to raise capital. And for the people listening to this presentation, it's really about why would they speculate with LithiumBank when there are other companies in the lithium space? You look at a market cap, it's, how does the market cap double? The larger they get, the harder it becomes. The smaller they are, the easier it is. So I think that we are still in the foundational phases of LithiumBank. We only IPO'd 5 or 6 months ago. It's a new story. And once we have our first important economic model, at that point, it's a different type of introduction to institutional investors, analysts, and we will be delivering that, and we will be working very hard on that. And I think people, they're going to do the work themselves. They're going to be putting us in peer groups and in comparables, and we will continue to drive the rest of the portfolio forward, the Fox Creek and the Saskatchewan portfolio. So that's how I see success for our company, in both ways.
So on that note, where would LithiumBank be on the Pierre-Lassonde curve?
Are you familiar with this, Kevin? Maybe I should answer this. So
yeah, go for it.
The Pierre-Lassonde curve, for those that are familiar with it, is that you get a resource company with a big discovery hole. You get this big share price appreciation. And then once a resource is delineated after lots of drilling, that resource either, the market is impressed by it or unimpressed. But when a company goes into development, then there's that boring phase where there's no more big discovery holes. You're reliant to live on the commodity, and you're waiting to have cash flow for production. Our company is not necessarily going to follow that, just with the way that. Why? Because we're not looking at having any barn burner drill holes. We're not doing that. We're sampling water, or we're sampling huge reservoirs of water. So it's about producing exciting world-class resources. We can do this, as I've said already before, time efficiently and cost efficiently. So that will continue to add value to the story on a per share basis. There's not a lot of dilution involved in that, Campbell. And then as we deliver the economic models, that too is time and cost efficient. So that should be on a per share basis, very accretive to the shareholder. So this story is not necessarily going to fall into the Lassonde curve because we're not drilling holes and we're not going through that long period of development and definitive feasibility studies. We're looking at creating resources, economic models, and partnership. And of course that, with a forward-looking statement, that would contemplate some kind of a divestiture or spin out or partnership to drive that forward. not reasonable to think that we're going to be taking these things into production years from now, because it's a different skill set. Know what you know what you don't know. Our skill set is to delineate and develop these economic models, because there's a lot of interest in lithium space, and we believe that's going to continue to happen.
So could you say you're sort of in the water brine DLE phase of, equivalent to sort of economic metallurgy efforts?
Quick to resource, quick and cost efficient to resource. Not about drilling holes, not about drilling wells, because the well infrastructure is already in place.
Can you get it out?
And about getting an economic model so people can understand what is the net present value based on a certain lithium price for this project, and what kind of extractive life does it have, and what kind of tonnage of product can it put out for a future lithium battery.
Yep. Kind of combining a few questions, but and again, it's still way off, but JV versus partnerships versus just selling the asset, doing it all yourself. What do you talk about in the boardroom when you're thinking about the end story there, the end game?
It's driving shareholder value, And so we do have a peer group. They do have market caps and such. And I think that's something that we believe that we have to close that delta. We have to close that gap. We have to be somewhere, in the middle, if you will. And that's something that'll happen I believe in the coming weeks and months.
What's your cash position?
Right now it's about 5 million, maybe a whisker below 5 million, 4.49, 4.8, something like that.
How long do you think that'll last you with the kind of plans you've been laying out?
It's a good question. So the resource is relatively cost effective to establish, because we would be using through our methodology existing well infrastructure, and the PA is mostly paid for. There's probably very little left to be paid for in there. So once that we're able to communicate the results of these studies and resources, we would then, see how the share price has reacted, and look at what kind of a future partnerships that could be created. So I would say if the markets continue to be like this, that money's going to have to last a lot longer, and then we'll have to be more creative with how we allocate that capital. Is it better to allocate it to get more resources, or is it better to allocate it towards starting other economic models?
When will there be a pilot plant? I guess maybe that is a reasonable, not too premature a question to ask.
Yeah, Kevin? I can answer that. Yeah, we're already in talks with our DLE provider. We're targeting summer 2023 to pilot.
Okay, great. As we kind of wind up, had some great questions. Thank you all. Market has been waiting for the PEA. Can you give us an update when to expect that? And I'll add to that as we close. Gianni, Kevin, take us through, re-summarize upcoming catalysts for this, the next 12, 18 months.
Yeah, the PEA. You want to? The PEA. We're as I said, we're weeks away from finding our final DLE study, mineral processing study. And after that, it's really just an engineering program with Hatch and putting that together, which would take a couple more months. And we expect to have a PEA out shortly after that.
Fantastic. Any thoughts of maybe monetizing some of your other non-Boardwalk assets?
Not for now. It's about meeting the investment community, and it's going to be a busy October, November. Very busy October, November. And I think delivering sort of the work that the team is doing, it's marching forward. And another very important factor for myself personally is that this is my sole focus. I'm not working on anything else. And the dedication to deliver the LithiumBank story, and to have really, our IPO was not really an IPO because we didn't raise capital. We raised almost $9 million a year before. We didn't go to market raising cash. And now that the market has just been so negative for this, the last 3 or 4 months, as everyone has lived through that, that doesn't faze us. our capital's been raised, the work moves forward, and now it's about introducing in very fine detail to larger investors, institutional investors, and analysts, so they understand anyone that's ever invested in one of our peer group should be interested to learn more about LithiumBank and the opportunity for all the things that we discussed today. And that's our focus, to speak to all those people over the coming 2, 3, 4 months until we get to Christmas.
Right on. Thank you all for tuning in. Please share your feedback. You can do it right now, or when you log out, or in the follow-up email that'll come in later today. And actually, really cool, you can share your feedback while you're watching the replay as well, and that'll get into our system. All your thoughts and comments and well wishes, I hope, will make it to Gianni and Kevin. So really much appreciated, and it's valuable crowd-sourced input at the end of the day. So with that, thank you, everyone, and till we meet again. Cheers.
Thanks, Campbell. Thank you,
Thanks,
Kevin.
Campbell. Yeah, Johnny.